on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:06, it's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here this Monday morning, just 16 days after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And I don't know about you, but I'm not completely over that. And there's plenty of news about it, in fact, whether it makes its way through the so-called news cycle filter or not, we'll make sure it makes its way to you this morning. Also, coming up later this morning at 6:35, Beverly Hallberg is in Paris. Talk about the first days of the Olympics. At 7:05, Joe DeGenova will be here. At 7:35, Ian Pryor on a victory for parents in Fairfax County. 8:05, Rick Mace. He is with the Washington Post covering the actual sports of the Olympics. And at 8:35, Scott Smith out of Loudoun County. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And I say we're going to talk a little later about the actual sports because the Olympics, well, they are about more than just sports. They're not just athletic endeavors. It's also an international gathering. And the opening ceremonies are always sort of a spectacle and an incredible show and a great force of entertainment. And I want to say, before I get into the troubling aspects of the Paris opening ceremonies, the moment where the Olympic torch was lit on a replica of a balloon that took flight over the very park where in the early 1800s, man first left the ground in a hot air balloon. France is trying to take credit for manned flight, although we know the Wright brothers really made it work. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Just let them have it. They have so
sure,
little.
They can have a hot air balloon. But no, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. Sure. And then cut over to, 1 mile away to the Eiffel Tower. And there on the top of the Eiffel Tower is Celine Dion singing in French, technically Quebecois, since she's French-Canadian.
Yes, of course.
With a grand piano in the rain. And, of course, Celine Dion has been suffering from an autoimmune disorder and a neurological disorder. Unbelievable pain that she goes through. She looked exquisite. It was a beautiful moment. The French language, when sung, is quite lovely. So it was that was great. That was beautiful. That was pristine.
And then you had to turn it off.
And I was skeptical, by the way, also of the idea of the athletes arriving on barges coming up the Seine, but that was very cool. Seeing the U.S. team filling that giant barge coming up, that boat, and waving the American flag. Even LeBron James looked happy. He wasn't taking a knee or,
Please don't ruin my day by bringing him up. All right,
trash talking the country. All that was great. That's what you want. And then there was the moment that the creators, directors, producers refer to now after the fact as a moment to celebrate inclusivity. It's amazing how to celebrate inclusivity, artists need to
insult,
trash, and assault other people's culture. Like, we're here to celebrate everybody's culture, so let's drag your culture down.
It's the safest thing to attack, right? Try that with Muhammad, okay?
There is, they created, and by now I'm sure you've seen it, but if not, we'll just lay it out for you. They created a tableau that was directly evocative of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, but it was populated by gay, lesbian, and transgender individuals, including a child, by the way.
Yes.
In the space. And the woman who was depicting Jesus, complete with a radiant halo, by the way, instead of holding up a piece of bread at the Last Supper, she was making a little heart sign with her hands. She is a
massively obese lesbian.
She's Zoftig, let's say.
Zoftig, no.
Rubenesque.
She ate everyone at the table.
Lesbian activist.
Yes.
And then when they revealed the meal they were eating, it was a dude painted blue who began singing in French, if that's important to you, what the person was saying. Now the person in blue is meant to evoke Dionysus and since the Olympics started in Greece, and let's just all talk about our humanity. And the naked blue French dude singing certainly tells me that.
Philippe Catherine, je vous laisse avec lui. Ça s'appelle Nu, et là, il y a un choix artistique.
Non, ou cacher un revolver quand on est tout nu.
There.
Okay. So,
I mean, it's not just art; it's French art, and that's
okay. But the people defending this are like, it's provocative, and you guys are all so square, and oh my gosh, Are you surprised that the French are this isn't provocative. This isn't risky even to attack the Christian church, the Catholic Church, the Last Supper. You think that's risky? That's predictable. It's boring. It's done all the time. If you really wanted to be provocative, try, or risky, again, try attacking the Muslim faith.
Right.
That's risky. Okay. That's actually scary to do. This is boring. It's not provocative. Frankly, it's not French.
It's why they did it. They did this because they know Christians aren't going to riot in the streets. They're not going to burn their buildings down. They're not going to murder them and their leaders. But remember the Charlie Hebdo incident? When the world rallied around free speech and free expression. And by the way, I was one of them. You should be able to depict a cartoon making fun of Muhammad. You should also be able to depict a cartoon making fun of Christians. Our point is that you've been doing that for 2,000 years. You've been mocking Jesus Christ since the moment he was murdered on a cross, okay?
It's the safest thing you can do.
It's boring, and it's also, by the way, the Charlie Hebdo cartoon was in a privately owned magazine that you can choose to purchase or not for your moment of satire. This is a unifying moment for the international community to come together, express what our culture stands for. If you're France, you're saying, hey, this is who we are, but then this is also, the bridge that we're trying to make to other cultures. That's what every Olympics opening ceremony has always been. When it was in London, they celebrated British culture. They didn't mock and drag down other cultures. And by the way, last I checked, Christianity was French culture. But I guess that's changed a bit.
You know what also is French culture, at least my understanding of French culture, whether it's the food, the fashion, the people, it's beauty. Beauty. It's art. It's beauty. It is trying to elevate humanity, trying to show what is beautiful about human and human invention, human innovation. And this was all ugly. Mm-hmm. I mean, this bearded blue man is hideous. It is the thing of nightmares. That the cast of characters in that Last Supper was hideous. Yeah. They were ugly people. And so that was another thing, is that the beauty of France, this wasn't their culture. This isn't historically been their culture. This is again, this new sort of pride culture.
Yes.
It's the new religion.
The gaslighting on this and the attempt to erase it and erase what happened. In fact, it's funny. You could share a ton of videos from the opening ceremonies, but everybody who shared that video got hit with a copyright infringement, and they tried to drag that video down. Then they said, oh, no, this wasn't the Last Supper. This was Dionysus. This was a Greek thing.
Right.
I had a friend of mine who I used to work with in theater who likes to go back and forth with me on social media about stuff like this. He's like, what happened to you? You used to work in the arts. And I said, yeah, I did. That's why I feel like I've got a pretty solid voice to talk about this stuff. He said, it wasn't the Last Supper. It wasn't the Last Supper. And this is the funny part. Everyone who was defending this and taking that line, it wasn't the Last Supper. It was Dionysus. It was a feast of Dionysus. Yeah. Then hours later, the Paris Olympics organizers and producers said, well, yeah, it was the Last Supper.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It was the Last Supper, but we didn't mean to offend anyone.
Yeah.
Hey. Never an intention to show any disrespect to any religious groups as en des camps. If people have taken any offense, we're, of course, really, really sorry. Now, this was meant to provoke, and it did. It provoked. I hope you're happy. It's so boring.
It is so boring.
And sadly, there are a lot of people who will not watch some really great work that some really great athletes did now, because the Olympics sent the message that we don't care about you. We think you're awful.
The last thing to say is a lot of people who are like, this is free speech. It's okay to complain about something. You're not violating anybody's free speech when you say this is gross. Right. This is gross and this is offensive. It's also free speech to object.
Yeah, we're not saying anybody should be arrested for doing this. We're saying that they're disgusting.
Well, I might be, but okay, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's 6:15 WMAL.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
By the way, we learned yesterday from local law enforcement in Pennsylvania that the Secret Service sniper team never showed up to a meeting they were supposed to have with local law enforcement. That raised a lot of eyebrows and concerns amongst local law enforcement. It meant that they weren't on the same page communications-wise, and, well, that led to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life, something that the media is not really focusing much on. We'll talk about that a little later in the program. Meanwhile, in Fairfax County on Friday, there was a huge win. America First Legal, led by Ian Pryor, who will be joining us at 7:35, sued the Fairfax County Public School Board on behalf of a female student because that female student didn't want to have to share bathrooms with biological men. Also, they added to that lawsuit forcing individual students to use female pronouns when addressing male classmates and vice versa, saying that that was a violation of their freedom of speech rights. Well, a Fairfax County judge sided with America First Legal and with the parents and with truth in this matter, which is a huge deal when a judge sides with the truth. Fairfax County School Board, of course, wanted this case dismissed. The judge rejected Fairfax County School Board's request that this be dismissed for their pronoun and bathroom policy, so the case will go forward. But that's a big step forward in Fairfax County. And I just want everyone in Fairfax County and all the teachers who say, oh, some of us are good, and we're not the same, and we're not. All right, well, you need to speak up because they're now using your money. They're using the tax dollars. They claim they're poor. They want to raise your property taxes to fund the schools that they have ruined with all these policies. They keep spending money on changing the names of the schools. They're spending the money on changing the bus schedule because they think your little snowflakes can't wake up early enough to catch the bus. All these things cost money, and then they ask for increases in your taxes. Now, and by the way, it costs money to change the signs on the boys and girls rooms to, instead of a figure of a boy or a figure of a girl, it's just a figure of a humanoid shrugging, saying, I don't know, whatever you got, you can come in. That all costs money, and now they're going to spend a lot of money on lawyers to try to fight this thing.
They did that, yeah. And Larry, they did this. They do this all the time. They double down. You notice that after all of this, after COVID, after the shutdowns, after the masks, all of this, they doubled down. They doubled down on all this gender theory stuff. They are, think about how the head of that school board was gavelled in as chairman on a stack of porn books. Okay. Yeah. They haven't walked back anything. And I will also tell you, in order to allow this bathroom situation to go forward, they were talking about renovations to these bathrooms that would make floor to ceiling walls on these bathrooms and lock these doors, essentially kind of trapping kids in these stalls. That was not an answer. They are constantly trying to do instead of just the common sense thing, which is give girls spaces, give boys spaces for these bathrooms. So, again, that's why this lawsuit is so important, because they never learn. They don't listen to parents objecting. They don't listen to parents who are like, my daughter is holding her pee all day because she doesn't want to go to the bathroom.
And it doesn't occur to them that by creating these floor-to-ceiling walls and locked doors for a cubicle for someone to use a toilet, out of the guise of protecting a girl that wouldn't need that protection if they didn't have this stupid policy in the first place, they've also, by the way, created a very private rape room.
Yes.
That a perpetrator can use to do a horrible thing. We know that's possible because, well, that's exactly what happened in Loudoun County. As you know, the 15-year-old daughter of Scott Smith, who will be joining us at 8:35 to talk about this, his daughter was sexually assaulted by a gender binary student who was using the ladies' restroom, the girls' restroom. And a teacher actually walked in and saw it and then walked away because the teacher didn't want to get into trouble for being discriminatory against a transgender individual who was engaged in a sexual act in a public restroom at a school. All right, this is where we are right now, Loudoun County. And, of course, you know that story. That created the scene at the school board meeting where Scott Smith was arrested in a brutal and aggressive fashion. Well, that perpetrator, the person who went to juvenile penitentiary for that sexual assault and then a subsequent sexual assault at another school that he had been transferred to, that student has been released because, time served, you've done your time, that's fine. But the parents of the victims and the victims themselves were not notified ahead of time.
Just unbelievable.
That this sexual predator is being released again out into the public. And that, I don't know, that seems wrong. Loudoun County, this is according to Glenn Barber, spokesperson for Loudoun County, said Loudoun County government has no role or responsibility in notifying victims in instances like this. I thought this was state law in most states, that when a sexual predator is released, there's notification made to the community, let alone. But maybe when it's a juvenile, the rules are different. We'll speak with Scott Smith about that at 8:35 coming up later in this program. It is 6:23.
Now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:36 Monday morning here. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company this last week of July. Oof, gosh, we start August this week. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Ian Pryor on those stories we were just talking about out of Fairfax County. At 8:05, Rick Mace, Washington Post sports reporter, talk about the first few days of the Olympics competitions. And then at 8:35, Scott Smith, Loudoun County. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Julie. And here's your colleague from Independent Women's Forum, Beverly Hallberg, who is in Paris for the Olympics, and we're really, really happy for her. We're not at all jealous, Beverly.
Not a bit. Nope, everything's fine.
Good morning. Bonjour.
Bonjour. How are you all? It's good to be with
Good.
you.
Listen, I noted
I
that
may
you
have just finished some French fries outside a cafe and some
French
crepes,
fries.
So I don't want to make you jealous. I know.
Well,
it's
of course,
breakfast.
there
I
they
know
just
it's
call them
breakfast there,
fries.
or not
Yeah.
even breakfast. Yeah, frites.
Beverly, I saw you noted on your Facebook page that as a person on the ground witnessing all the events there in Paris on the beautiful, and it really was a beautiful celebration, mostly. You didn't see what we saw, that television presentation that was just so obscene to so many people, the blasphemous recreation of the Last Supper.
Right, and it was interesting going on Twitter after and seeing all the videos. Now, I will say the area that I was in did have some jumbotrons, so they did play it, but you're not hearing everything. You're grabbing food. You're hanging out with the people who are there, and I actually found it to be a really fun celebration because we were able to see the boats, and people are cheering for the country and the athletes from that country on the boats. It was raining. People were dancing and singing in the rain. And It was just a wonderful celebration. Now, some of the reports that I think, I actually thought, like, maybe I should have paid to go to the opening ceremony because I just walked to the Seine. I just walked to the river, and the city had things set up for the people who live there. And I saw a lot of people that spent a lot of euros to see basically nothing because, as you know, the events took place all over the city, so it wasn't a central location. So I feel like I, first of all, won because I didn't see it on TV. Second of all, just got to enjoy the athletes and the people celebrating the countries, and I didn't pay anything. So it was a win-win-win for me.
Yeah, good for you. You did it the smart way.
You really did dodge a bullet there, Beverly, because what we saw was really gross. The sort of depiction of the Last Supper and obviously that weird blue man. There was a lot of trans imagery as well. A bearded man coming down a sort of a catwalk.
Julie, it's
dressed
gay
like a woman.
Paris.
I know. But I wanted to ask you about another image. Marie Antoinette, there was this sort of, rock, I guess, heavy metal band playing. And there was an image of Marie Antoinette, beheaded, obviously, kind of a bloody scene. I'm kind of interested in, was there a French reaction to that? I feel like people maybe aren't aware of what really happened to Marie Antoinette. She was treated horribly. Her son, the Dauphin, was tortured. It was a horrible ending to her life. And yet, do Parisians sort of celebrate the beheading of Marie? What was the reaction to that? Because, it really was a gruesome ending to that woman's life.
Sure. I think it was mixed. And like I said, a lot of the area where I was are people celebrating other countries. We got stuck in the rain. We did not prepare well. And we had a family from Peru who was there to celebrate the Peruvian Olympic team. And they gave us umbrellas, and we had a great time with them. So we weren't necessarily surrounded by only French people. It was just people of different countries that were there. I will say that there is this element of the elements that I did see on the Jumbotron. Like I said, it wasn't as loud as you expected. You weren't really watching that as much as the river. Mm-hmm. There does seem to be, it almost felt from my vantage point more of an artistic thing. I thought what was amazing, like here I am on the side of the river and look at these performances are taking place on actual buildings in Paris. So
Yeah.
I think from the artistic, architectural side of it, I thought that was really compelling, that we are outside and this is happening.
I agree.
I'm not seeing the intricacies of it, but there wasn't, I mean, I'll be honest, most depictions of Marie Antoinette when you see the movies is a very frivolous person who treated the poor poorly. I think depictions of Marie Antoinette are not very favorable to begin with.
Yeah.
I took it more as an artistic approach and found it very interesting. They mixed it with heavy metal, which I didn't know who that band was, but I was like, okay, maybe this is the French being French.
It was funky. It was
artsy.
cool visuals. And, listen, the French celebrate the guillotine. They don't see that they were basically terrorists, at the time. So what are you going to do?
Exactly.
I do love that choice, though. I love the fact that they were in there and they were saying, okay, well, what kind of set design? And some smart person in the production team said, why do we need a set design? My God, we're in Paris. That's our set. Let's use Paris. And that was a really bold and beautiful architectural or scenic design element choice. What was the mood like, Beverly? I'm assuming that you were identified as an American. You were cheering the U.S. team as they went by. We often hear that the French don't like American tourists and that there's hostility toward us at various times. Are you sensing any of that?
That's been what's been so surprising. Not at all. And we, the people who are with, when we went down for the opening ceremony, we decided to, of course, don the red, white, and blue. We had ourselves covered in it.
Yeah, I knew you would. I did, because you hear about American tourists wearing, I'm going to wear a Canadian patch so people don't mistake me for American. Not our Beverly.
No, I was a very proud American, and they still gave me umbrellas. So I thought that was a good sign. But honestly, everybody has been nice. Now, I have one benefit. I have a friend here who lives in Paris. I met her in D.C., and she speaks French. So it's really helpful to walk around with somebody who is fluent in the language. But no, everybody's like, where are you from? And even I went to this beach volleyball game last night, which that stadium, amazing, just beautiful. Everybody was so kind. So I've only met really friendly, wonderful people. The spirit of the Olympics is here. I know the coverage has been different because of the opening ceremony, but when you're here on the ground, you really are just celebrating countries and the Olympians who obviously have trained so hard to be there.
Yeah, Beverly's been thinking about this for years. She's like, I need a French friend. And she made a friend.
Yes,
and then she
really
gets to
calculating
go over
of
to
you.
Paris.
I'm impressed. You're playing the long game. Yes.
I know. Just go to D.C., meet people who want to go work somewhere else, and just tag along and get a free place to stay. It works.
I love
it. Worked my game plan all along in life.
What events are you going to see? Are tickets hard to come by? Are you able to get into events? And what are you planning on seeing?
So today I'm heading out. So I just was here for a few days. So I did tennis. I got to see Novak Djokovic play, which he was amazing. I did soccer. I saw Israel, Paraguay, which, by the way, Israel flags flying everywhere.
Yes.
And that was the day where there was that tragic bombing in Tel Aviv. And so I walked in. I'm like, is this the safest place for me to be today? But I was like, I'm going to come here and represent. There were so many people waving the Israeli flag. So just seeing that was super cool. And then beach volleyball last night. So those were my events.
Fun.
Stay safe. That's a real good American sport, too, beach volleyball. Stay safe, Beverly. Thanks for your report. And since you're leaving today, on your way out, just stop a French person and say, wasn't Celine Dion great? She's North American. Wasn't Celine Dion great? She's North American. I love they're trying to make her French. Right. She's not French. Celine Dion is North American.
Enough.
Snoop Dogg is making a big splash, so he is representing the USA out here. I will say that.
All right. Thanks, Beverly. Beverly Hallberg, Independent Women's Forum. They're live from Paris. It's 6:45 WMAL traffic and weather. Every 10 minutes, first on the fives. Here's the Celine Dion of traffic reports in D.C. She's Jamie Whitten. Also North American. You have more in common with Celine Dion than any of those French people who are trying to make her French now, Jamie, in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Making sense of the vote, because elections have consequences. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
It's 6:49 on O'Connor & Company. Two big stories that we're covering for you that the rest of the media won't cover, Julie Gunlock. The first, of course, is that Celine Dion is not French. I just want to make sure everyone recognizes that. And secondly, it's only been 16 days since a grotesque, horrific, violent assassination attempt on the Republican nominee for president took place. That nominee, Donald Trump, of course, is a man who was vilified by the current president, Joe Biden, he's still the president, along with the vice president, along with the Secretary of Homeland Security in charge of security at the rally in which that assassination attempt took place. Biden and Harris and Mayorkas have all said for the last several years that that Donald Trump must be stopped at all costs. These are the words they use. That he is an existential threat to our country and our democratic way of life. And so then a bullet whizzed by his ear, just a fraction of an inch from killing him, ending his life and ending his political campaign as well, and many Republicans' hopes to actually unseat the current regime. And yet we're not hearing a whole lot of stories about it. Now,
No,
I do
we're
want to
not.
give credit to ABC News that did speak with the local law enforcement there. And one little nugget that came out of it, I think, should maybe open up even more investigation in newsrooms that, as you say, Julie, spend a lot of time talking about the flag that's being flown outside the house of a Supreme Court justice by his wife. And we know everything about the spat she got into with their liberal neighbors in Alexandria.
Oh, yes.
But we still don't know much about the person who just tried to murder Donald Trump. Now listen to this.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
And by then?
It was too late.
That's a local SWAT officer who, as you just heard, said he started to think something might be wrong when they didn't have a scheduled meeting with Secret Service snipers ahead of the shooting. They were supposed to have that, and then they had no communication with. This is the local SWAT team. They're there to protect the president as extensions of the Secret Service detail, and they're to provide the kind of protection in an emergency or to prevent an emergency that the Secret Service says they relied on. And the Secret Service never had a meeting with that local SWAT team.
Yes, but I'm the one who has a problem if I think this is all a little too coordinated. I'm the conspiracy theorist. I mean, this is just unbelievable that there seemed to be no communication. There seemed to be no coordination. They let Trump go on that stage when they knew for 15 minutes that there was a suspicious person. This is all incredibly scary. And again, the media, I mean, I know there's this exception that ABC News did this interview.
Dribs and drabs.
It is amazing to me. The Sunday News show, Fox did a great story on it on the Sunday morning Fox show. The others didn't. It's just memory hold.
It is. It's dribs and drabs, and it's you look at most news reports, and there's no, here's our 5-minute news report, no mention of this story that is only 16 days old. We've got Joe DeGeneva coming up. We'll talk to him about it next. It's 6:53.